A terror prowls on the screams of young children. Horned blue beast and one-eyed slime balls haunt your nightmares in Monsters, Inc.
Mafia, wake up, wake up.
You have created a monster and it will destroy you.
Sad by the lack of ink in this film.
It is sad about the lack of ink.
That was the worst joke I've maybe ever done on this podcast. That was terrible. It wasn't even funny. Ooh,
Welcome back to
it's a bad sign. It's already going downhill, buddy.
Welcome back to the Monsters vs. Men podcast. This is the bargain basement of the Monster Podcast, the airwaves where two friends try to stay alive and stay connected by chatting about weekly monster movies. This week, as we try to stay alive, we are discussing Monsters, Inc. or Monsters Incorporated, which is what I usually call it for whatever reason.
Oh, that makes more sense. Yeah, that is odd. Interesting.
Oh, man. Yeah, did you see this movie when it came out? Did you? You probably went and saw it in theaters.
Oh, yeah. I did.
I probably did too. I just don't remember.
Yeah, I saw most movies in theaters. If I'm being like from a certain age, I saw almost every movie in theaters. I'm pretty sure. But yeah, I definitely saw this one in theaters.
That checks. That makes sense. Your backstory checks out.
Yeah, thanks, buddy.
That's funny.
Yeah. So this was a good one. From back then, that I was wondering, very interested to see how this one held up before this week. There's other CG animated films from before this that maybe I'll talk about a little bit while I'm going over this. But I was very interested to see how time has treated this film.
For sure. Well, let's jump into it then and see if time has treated this film well, shall we?
All right, you one-eyed slime ball.
Our animation series takes yet another right turn with Pixar's Monsters, Inc., a film that is probably the most well-known of any in our animated monster series. Monsters, Inc. was released right during Pixar's heyday, which, to me at least, Alex, feels to have definitively passed at this point. But this film, like so many on Pixar's box office earning, critic-pleasing run, surprised many with its subversive comedy and unique perspectives. But looking back on it, over 20 years later, does it still earn its laughs, Alex, or are you left screaming?
I may have been screaming with laughter. What is wrong with me?
You have got some good ones today.
Oh yeah, some real singers.
You are filling those energy canisters twice over, Alex.
Yeah, that's me. Yeah, I'm hitting my quota. Yeah, so it definitely does though, for real, earn its laughs. It continues to do so, but really though, it wasn't the nature of the comedy in the film that really impressed me. It was the creativity that's in this film from stem to stern. And it still looks great, which is a relief. Only a few times do the facial animations fail the movie. Going back to something like Toy Story and seeing the human characters in that, it's kind of rough. It's a little scary. While Boo sometimes does look a little off, it's okay, because she's a little monster anyways. And what I like about this film, and you said, Eric, that there was a, Pixar in its heyday. That's definitely true. Pixar is no longer this creative. They're not playing on really creative ideas, like having this big door sequence where they're jumping through all these doors in this warehouse, and just the nature of this world and how it works. Like now you get a film like I think Elemental that just came out, where the big thing is, oh, can you imagine if a fire person and a water person fell in love? It's like, okay, okay, different people fall in love. Okay, the creativity is almost non-existent, I feel like, for the most part. And I think that this film does something that even the story that a lot of Pixar films from this era do, and what makes them so memorable, is it taps into something timeless. It taps into the element of fear, and a childlike fear that is in everybody when they're a child. That fear of the dark. And the way that it does things is it just has so much personality that I am impressed 20 years on. What about you, Eric? Were you laughing during this?
Yeah. One? Oh, yeah, for sure. Now, I'll say, yeah. Yeah. I mean, you are definitely laughing in this movie. I think a successful selling point for Monsters, Inc. is that at this moment in time, we've probably watched this 4 or 5 times this week, with each of my 3, 5, and 8-year-olds asking for it at different points during that time. So, yeah, I mean, it was successful with my kids, so it must have something going for it. And I guess it's to be expected, Alex, but of course, there is an element of fright to each of the 3 movies we've watched so far. We are watching animated monsters, right? And Monsters, Inc. at least starts with a bit more of that. With a bit of a frightening element, even if that frightening element quickly fades. That bedroom simulation scene right at the beginning of the film is one of my favorite moments, and one of my kids' favorites as well, because it does build up that tension, even though it's brief before its comedic release, that gets a laugh out of all my kids and a real belly laugh from my 3-year-old. Even though she doesn't understand the ironic elements, I don't think, of that moment. She just finds the slapstick comedy element hilarious. So all of it combined makes for a great moment. I love that opening because that's the start of the creativity that we do see in this film.
Yeah, you're saying everything that I'm thinking. I love that it plays on. It's a children's film that plays on that children's first fear, or at least a lot of children's first fear of the dark and the monsters in it. I think it's bold to lean into it in its initial moments of the film because it is quite scary in that first moment. And again, I want to stress something that you also mentioned, and I've been mentioning since Totoro. Having this element of horror, even if it's minor, in the elements, throughout all the elements in a children's film, seems to be a recipe for success. There's something incredibly captivating about those elements in the film, those horror moments, when you don't, in a film where you just don't expect these things to be present. And I believe that translates really well for adults and kids, making this, like I said earlier, a timeless film. And the opening is scary. The sucker, as it approaches the face of Boo, is terrifying. And Randall's invisibility when he disappears when Sully is out at the door, and when he's you just see some of the stuff moving. That's a little bit of horror too. And I like the way his invisibility plays into some of those horror moments. Really cool stuff from a children's film. And again, their kids like to be a little scared, I believe.
Oh, yeah. Despite the fact that this is a G-rated movie, Alex, which is impressive. But yeah, and on top of that, on top of those small horror moments, my favorite aspect of this movie might be the buddy angle of the whole thing. I mean, you really got to like some of the small buddy moments, such as Sully covering for Mike and doing his paperwork for him, which built character and continued the plot, by the way, right there towards the beginning of the film. Or the fact that Mikey, his first call after seeing himself on TV, is with Sully's mom. He's like, it's your mom, right? And you know, in these buddy movies that there will inevitably be that conflict and separation before you get that reunion and celebration at the end. And yes, we do get that formula here, but we get it with a lot of hijinks in between. So yeah, first and foremost, this might be a buddy movie more than anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's a buddy movie. It's a rescue mission. You know, it's these character moments with these main characters that really add a lot of texture to their interactions. These ones that you mentioned, a lot more than we do see even in a lot of 2-hour movies. I even missed the Mike calling Sully's mom thing, which is quite funny. And I love the little nod where Mike goes to dinner with Celia at Harryhausen's restaurant. It's such an awesome nod that I probably wouldn't have even picked up a few years ago.
Exactly.
And I love the element there, though, when Mike's going, is that Sully pulled all the strings for him to help his buddy out to go on a date. Uh-huh. And, you know, he's not expecting to receive anything in turn. He's just doing this for his friend. And it makes a very believable friendship in the film that is, you know, somewhat unbelievable. But then there's also like the character of Boo, who is, of course, it's a little girl and immediately lovable, but calling someone like Sully Kitty is just too cute. Mm-hmm. So you really feel for her when she gets scared of Sully. And when she is in danger, you really do feel like Sully in those moments, right? Where he's wanting to go protect her and get back to her. And he doesn't care what he has to do. He'll even leave Mike behind to save this little girl. I really like that. And I think it's really cool. And also her comedy moments are hilarious. Even her just first appearances are absolutely hysterical. Like when she interrupts their dinner, just for the entire location to end up getting zapped.
Yeah.
It's really good stuff.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I guess I'll be a downer, or the downer, I guess, for a moment. I do think this film is fun, unique, interesting. But for me, I didn't resonate as much with some of what I thought could have been the emotional moments of this film, like I think I could. You mentioned Sully and Boo's relationship, but I feel like the movie could have done more with that relationship, actually, to build a real emotional bond between them. There are some of those things, right? Like her calling him Kitty, that you're like, that gets you. But there aren't as many intimate moments between the two that I think could build that relationship even stronger. So instead, most of the relationship, it seems to be built by keeping Boo out of trouble or hidden from others, which is fine. Like that's part of the plot. I get it. But I do think a couple quiet moments with those two in some sort of way could really go a long way for building that relationship for me. And also, I know I'm nitpicking. This is a complete nitpick, and it's something that I usually could care less about because it's plot related. But the door logic just doesn't make any sense to me, which is weird. I don't know why it bothers me. But like that chase scene with the doors, it is super creative. I love the concept of it. But there's just so many doors. There's an infinite number of doors here. And somehow we guess doors that are kind of somewhat in our vicinity that we need to be in.
Yeah.
It's just a little like, I don't know how that's possible. And so it bothers me a little bit for one reason or another.
I think it's fair.
But I don't know why. I don't like plot stuff doesn't bother me, but for some reason this one does. I'm like, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I know. That actually bothered me a bit too while watching it. I was like, you keep getting closer.
How? There have to be a million doors for this movie to make sense.
Right.
Now, maybe they're separated geographically or something. Someone email us and tell me the logical explanation here of the doors. I guess there probably is, right? A Pixar apologist out there.
Give us the Monsters Incorporated
Exactly.
lore.
Someone give me that
door lore
of Monsters Incorporated. We are here for it. But hey, Alex, on MVM Plus today over at patreon.com/MVM pod, we talk about 4th of July, our first jobs, and we have another lightning round. Levi makes a guest appearance, I should say.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And we have another lightning round of Alex movies that he has seen recently. So that's over at patreon.com/MVM pod, where you can catch that episode and our entire backlog of a crazy number of MVM Plus episodes at patreon.com/MVM pod. Let's get into our awards, though. Alex, compelling character, who you got?
Okay, I gave it to Water News. This is our insect-like boss of Monsters Incorporated. I like this character. He ends up being a bad guy, but he's also, it's weird, right? Because he's doing a horrible thing to keep the lights on in his city, but then there's also that tinge there that's I'm doing it for my company. And that's the thing. I'm like, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then he also still, it's weird because when things start to go down, he still seems to genuinely care for Sullivan.
He does. Yeah.
Despite everything else that's happening, he definitely still cares for people. He's not the psychopath that
he thinks Sullivan, he knows Randall's a bad guy.
Yeah, he knows Randall is evil, right?
He knows Randall's a bad guy, and he knows Sullivan's a good guy. But he is trying to save the company at all costs.
Yeah, and that's where the problem comes in. It's like, once you see that, it's pretty horrifying. And once you see how it works on the monster that gets replaced, it's like, yeah, you're definitely you're definitely a bad guy.
Oh.
No doubt about it. But he's like in this really weird spot where they're facing an energy crisis and he has no idea how to resolve it. And this is kind of like how low he's going. It's kind of interesting.
It is interesting. Well, my compelling character goes to the real boss, which is Roz. She turns out is more than just the paperwork lady. Right? She is running the show behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
So she's hilarious, though, just in getting Mike to do his paperwork. And of course, it's just a fabulous twist at the end that she is basically the head of is it CDC?
No,
is that what they are?
The CDC. They're
that's the Center for Disease Control.
Yes, it is.
Something very similar. It's like, what is it?
I can't remember. Yeah.
One of those, a Pixar apologist needs to, again, email us,
right.
Tell us what it is. It's not the CDC, but it basically is. So, most memorable line award, Alex, what you got?
Yeah, mine's when Sully thinks that Boo's been crushed. He's just, I can still hear her voice. And then Boo from down the hall, Mike Wazowski. He's like, Mike is like, hey, I can hear her too. And then all the kids are down the hall. Mike Wazowski. And Mike just goes, how many kids you got in there?
Oh man, that movie was that moment was dark.
Yeah, it's so funny.
It is funny.
What about you?
I like this happens twice, kind of, right? It happens again at the end on the magazine cover, but whenever Mike appears on TV and he's covered up conveniently, right? It's so perfect, right? He's covered up, and Mike is like, I can't believe it. And Sully's like, oh, Mike. And Mike, I was on TV. Did you see me? I'm a natural.
I love that moment, dude.
Because you know what you expect, and then he subverts that, and it's hilarious.
And like you said, the double dip on it makes
double dip is great. Yeah, and I just love how the incorporated logo covers him completely,
yeah,
like the
perfect.
circular logo. So good, so good. Can't believe the acting award though. Who'd you have?
Yeah, mine goes to Mary Gibbs, who did Boo. She had to do a lot of gobbledygook in this movie. A lot of just gibberish that's like vaguely familiar and somewhat understandable, but also very childlike. very impressed, Mary Gibbs, with all your jibble jabber. You did a great job.
Are you sure they didn't just get a baby and just made him do gobbledygook?
All right. Hey, don't take that away from Mary Gibbs, okay? She did a great job. And I'm sure she did all of
Mary
that.
Gibbs has an IMDb page. Mine, it goes to Billy Crystal.
Huh?
There are several you could actually choose from here. There's some great vocal performances that stand out. These are iconic voices, right? Like you have iconic voices in this movie, but there's something about Billy Crystal's mic that is perfect. It fits his character so well. Those comedic moments, like I just mentioned, are sold by his performance. Yes. Goodman Sully is fantastic, but I just can't imagine anybody else besides Billy Crystal as Mike here.
Right? Yeah, for sure.
What about your that's a good shot award, Alex?
Yeah. Mine, let's see. That's a good shot award is the backlit Boo. She's backlit with the two monsters, with Mike and Sully on the left and right side of the screen. She has this big shadow, like a monster shadow in between them. But it's just so funny because it's the shadow of a little girl, and it looks exactly like a little girl. It's not like the shadow looks like a monster, and so it's just so goofy looking to have these two monsters scared of this little girl in the scene. It's great. What about you?
Yeah, no, that's a good one. Mine is. It goes back to that beginning scene where at first it's the tentacle on the chair, but then the kid does a second take and it's just a coat on the chair that's hanging out from its closet. And I was like, oh man, that is just a memorable moment, right? Because what kid hasn't been there? So I love that shot and building that tension.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What about your Nick Awards, Eric? What?
Nick Award, Alex. I think we have the same answer for our unique award.
Oh, did we?
So I think maybe because I've got the coolest monster award, and I can see here from your notes what you have, Alex.
I had the best monster reference. So I want to hear yours, Eric. What do you have here?
Mine goes to Ted. Which Ted is Godzilla.
Oh yeah, that's so good.
I guess I call him Ted for whatever reason. I'm sure there's a reason, probably. Someone smarter than me knows. I think they call him Ted, but it's hilarious. They're like, yeah, he takes 10 steps to work.
It's pretty good. Yeah, I love that moment.
So I was hoping that was yours, but maybe not, Alex.
No. Mine is actually, I like the Harryhausen restaurant, actually.
Oh,
that was my favorite monster reference, is because it's such a niche reference. It is really cool. And there was also some fun Pixar references at the end when he's handing Boo her toys. And you see all the different characters like Nemo, what's her name? Annie from Toy Story 2? I can't remember her name.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was really cool. But really, it's the Harryhausen reference is so cool.
Yeah. Jessie is the cowgirl's name.
Jessie, thank you.
Final thoughts and rating, Alex. I'll go ahead and start. I think this is a great Pixar film. I have a couple of very small complaints and very small nitpicks. So this is kind of borderline for me between that upper tier Gamera, lower tier Godzilla. It'll probably go lower tier Godzilla just because of the creativity and the time it was made. It still does hold up for the most part, like you mentioned. Yeah, there are a couple of Boo animations that you're like, oh, that's kind of creepy. But beyond that, it still holds up really well. And I mean, because it's on that borderline, I have to ask myself, okay, does it reach its target audience? And as I mentioned at the top of the review, it definitely does. So my kids love this movie, so it probably pushes it into that Godzilla tier for me. What about you, man?
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you, Eric. This is a Godzilla tier for me. I really, when my complaints come down to how the doors may or may not work in their proximity to each other in the real world, in a movie like this, I can give it a bit of a pass. Does it bother me a little bit? Yeah, it does a little bit because it's kind of like zombie logic. It doesn't make quite sense, but we're doing it for the plot. But other than that, I mean, again, it's the creativity that's here from beginning to end, the scary moments punctuated by that bits of comedy. And there's just the comedy really almost entirely lands here. I'm not there rolling my eyes at hardly anything, I don't think. So I got to give it a lot of praise. The characters are great. And the story is very poignant, too, at the end, where he comes back to Boo, who we don't think he's ever going to see again. That little, Boo kitty moment is really cute. So I got to give it the Godzilla tier. It deserves it.
Nice. No, I like it. So Alex, I didn't tell you this, but ChatGPT listened to our conversation.
Oh,
and
okay.
Come up with a Rotten Tomatoes critics consensus for our joint review of this film. Do you want to hear it?
Oh, I do.
It says, Monsters, Inc. impresses with its creativity, timeless appeal, and a successful blend of humor and minor horror elements that captivate both adults and kids. The buddy dynamic and character moments add texture, although the emotional depth and door logic could have been further developed. Pretty good.
Horrifying.
It's pretty terrifying.
It's too good. I don't like it.
So I may do
my gosh.
that from time to time. It's pretty terrifying, but that was our Rotten Tomatoes critics consensus of Alex and mine joint review.
If it listens enough, it can just replicate our voices, and we just want to do anything.
Exactly.
Let's get to listen to the show with our listeners.
Exactly. Well, hey, next week, Alex, we are doing a brief departure from our animated series. We're going to get back to that. But you told me Renfield is on Peacock.
Ooh,
so we are going to check out Renfield. It's a Dracula film with Nicolas Cage. So it's kind of a mandatory watch now that it's on streaming. It's mandatory. So next week when we watch Renfield, Alex, will Nicolas Cage be even keeled, or, as I hope, will he refuse to yield?
Yeah, I'm excited just to get back to see Dracula, because with Renfield, he's going to be Dracula. Oh no! Oh, I had a good one in my head, and then it just you get to hear it disintegrate.
Oh yeah, I heard that crumbling.
You hear it.
I heard crumbling from a mile away. Yeah. You started off with great jokes, and you end the episode with a great rhyme. I love it.
Yeah, the finishing strong, buddy.
As always, thank you for listening to Monsters vs. Men. You can leave us feedback on this episode at mvmpod.com or email us at mvmpod@gmail.com. Follow us and message us on Twitter and Instagram at MVM_pod. You can become a bargain basement at patreon.com/MVMpod and receive all that weekly bonus content, including special reviews, interviews, and host chats. And if you can't join at this time, a review or share always helps. iTunes, I just learned this week, Alex, there's Spotify ratings. I didn't even know that until this week. So rate us on Spotify if you have that. Monsters vs. Men is produced by Alex Cornett. Executive producers are Kevin Alexander, Faye Sear, John Freeman, and Michael Herndon. Special thanks to our wives, Kamala Rock Band for PlayStation 3, which forms Cell Block B, Louis Loops, Senior Honda, Drew the Collector, Instagram Connector, and you, the listener, as always, for listening. Until next time, don't
forget to send us all that door lore.
And try to stay alive.
Mafia, wake up, wake up.
You have created a monster and it will destroy you.
outdoor lore reminds me of Troll Toll for whatever reason.
Oh, taking this boy's home.